that's going to start now. And we are going to start with a roll call. Let's get some other folks admitted. And
I'll handle the admitting people so you can focus.
Okay, great. Is Bill here today? Bill Abudi? Laura Areola? Brent Bucknam? Reverend Carroll? Bridget Cook? I believe Kevin said he would not be joining us today. Richard Groh?
Here, yes.
Ooh, we got one. Kalila Haynes? I saw Kalila. I'm just going to give you a check mark there. Matt Heft? Sony Johnson? Kate Lefkowitz? Rita Look? I don't believe Steve was joining us. Miss Alverdia?
Yes.
I got your check mark there. Colin Peath or Selena Chan? Fern, we see ya. David Woolley?
Hi, everybody.
Hey, David. All right. I'm going to give you a check mark there. Brandon Reed? Melissa Houchin? Veronica Cole?
It's me.
Gotcha. Paul Grazzini? Bruce Tudor? May Colcord? David Gonzalez? Simon Kobayashi? And Josh Rose. Okay, so again, for those of you who just joined us, please sign in. I'll add it again a little bit later. So this is our agenda for today. We're going to have a welcome. We've got a follow-up from the previous meeting. We're going to have a couple of presentations, one on the general plan, EJ element. We're going to have 2 small group discussions, and then we're going to report back. We've got a small presentation on the transformative climate communities grant proposal from our colleagues at the city of Oakland, and then we're going to close for the day. All right, we are going to start. We're going to start with the welcomes from the co-leads. Do I see either Brian or Miss Margaret?
Brian said he is trying to get himself signed in. I think he might be having technical issues on his end, so but he should be here shortly.
Okay, so
Nicole, I don't know if you want to try to field this, but
well, let's try and we're going to pass this to Fern, and so we'll just get started. Fern.
Okay, thank you. So just an announcement about an advocacy action that's coming up that will be hosted by the West Oakland Environmental Indicators Project, Sunflower Alliance, which is a group based in Richmond, California, and also EDF. And this rally is going to be related to a CARB's rule, called the Ship at Birth rule. And the steering committee received an update actually at the last meeting from CARB staff, Hanjiro. So this relates to that. And part of the status at the moment is that the rule was adopted in 2020 and was supposed to go into effect earlier this year. However, it's
progress.
It's facing some delays. Sorry, I'm hearing an echo. It's facing a delay Part of the delay is because CARB is waiting for an authorization from the US EPA in order to start implementing. And so we want to do a rally at the US EPA building in San Francisco on May 17th to urge EPA to approve this rule so that CARB can swiftly implement this regulation, because it's been a long time coming, and ships, especially when they are idling, when they're docked at the port and idling, is still one of the largest sources of emissions at the port of Oakland and other ports around the Bay Area. So this is, I think the information is there. There will also be a synchronized event happening in the South Coast with our coalition partners in LA. And the LA folks led by East Yard Community for Environmental Justice, Move LA, Pacific Environment, and others are going to host the same event, really a rally and a press conference outside of the port of LA. So we hope that many folks can turn out for this and really tell EPA that we want this rule to be implemented as soon as possible. May 17th at 10 a.m. US EPA office in San Francisco, and the event link is that. Oh, thank you, Beth. You just there as well. Please do come out. For our San Francisco event, a couple of elected officials have already agreed to come and speak as well. And sorry, one last thing, I know I'm taking a lot of time. Miss Margaret helped to reach out to the EPA Region 9 administrator to join our event. On that day, she's actually going to be in LA, so she'll join our LA event, but she will send her staff to the San Francisco event to receive a letter from us, a letter of urging EPA to approve this as soon as possible. Thank you.
Great. Thanks a lot, Fern. Appreciate that. We're going to move, and I don't think that they are here right now, but we also want to announce that we have two new steering committee members, Leila Yasmin Sadat and Robert Phillips. Robert is the president and chief executive officer of the West Oakland Health Council, and Leila is the chief strategy and planning officer, and they may be joining us today. I don't see them on right now, but really happy about that. I knew Robert way back when he was at California Endowment. He's been doing some great work for many years. So, and again, we've got a sign up for those who joined us a little later. We've got a sign up sheet, and please sign in. And then there's also the slide deck for today. There's a link there to that. We're going to move. We've got a follow-up from a previous meeting, and I'm going to introduce Alicia Parker. Alicia?
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm Alicia Parker with BACMed, and I wanted to give you an update from the last meeting so that we have that connectivity between meetings. So one of the things that we followed up on was a comment, or really a letter of support for the Oakland Planning Code amendments that address truck attracting businesses that directly implement several strategies in the WOCAP. So I just put like the Google Doc of that letter of support in the chat. So again, the request is for steering committee to sign on. Okay. And I think, we can maybe take a poll now, or maybe towards the end of the meeting. But I would like to close with like a affirmative kind of decision on that we're going to green light that. So can we take action at the end of the meeting? And does that work for folks? Do you want to wait and kind of do a follow-up email?
And is everybody clear on what we're trying to do? Because what we can do is just kind of follow up with steering committee members, just so we can take action. We know you have to take action, but
Maybe we circled back at the end.
yeah, okay. So that's the letter, and then
Yeah. Okay, next up. Thank you. So the next thing is just a quick update on the various strategies that were noted as not started. Wanting to let you know that we are, kind of initiating those conversations around the future further study measure 4, which is kind of working more closely with East Bay Mud and figuring out some of the facility issues there. And also, so the initial step is that our district staff are meeting internally to see what what kind of permit enforcement we might be able to do. And then we would, kind of expand out from there. The next thing is the further study measure 6, and that's related to the ports appointment system. And that is likely addressed through the GoPort project. So we're just confirming with the port. We'll follow up with you, hopefully in our email update. And then we are also kind of coming up with some best practices and some case study, some research around the enforcement items that were talked about last month in terms of better coordinating the enforcement among the various agencies, and if we can expand enforcement to weekends and after hours. And the other thing that came up last month was whether or not we can kind of look at the aggregate emissions from all industrial businesses. And we'll be looking at that as part of the emissions inventory update. That's the update. Are there any questions?
do we have any quick questions? No? Thanks a lot, Alicia.
Could you just remind us again what the FSM 4 and 6 are? Maybe
Yes.
you said it and I missed it. I'm sorry.
Oh, sure. I can put them in the chat. It's further study measure. So they didn't quite make it into a strategy number, so it had like a prefix of FSM for further study measure.
Oh, okay. Okay, thanks. I didn't know the acronym.
Great. And the also follow up. This is the final enforcement 2-pagers. So please share it. I've shared the link in the chat. And so we want to get this out to the public to make sure that they know that where they can reach out to if there are environmental violations. These are the different enforcement agencies. There's also a folder with the other documents. So we've got a handful and a growing number of documents that we're using. And so that's a link to the folder, which is there's a health 1-pager, there's one on the steering committee, there's one on our general WOCAP engagement strategies, and then there's the community engagement plan. So please take a look at that and share widely. Also, just wanted to let you know that this is an update. This could have gone at the end, but there is a home energy resource fair on Thursday. So just wanted to announce that, and it's on electrification. And so that too will be in the chat. Home energy resource fair. Okay. So moving on, we are going to go into the general plan and EJ orientation, part 1, and we're going to hand it over to Beth. You're on mute.
Oops, sorry. I'm going to share my screen, right? So we can,
Yes.
I don't have to say share screen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me get it. There we go. Okay, everyone see my slides here. Let me get in slideshow mode. Okay, we're ready. Oh, let me move the chat over. Sorry, my computer is not letting me do anything yet, but we have lots of our general plan friends here today. So we have Kalila Haynes from the City of Oakland, Miss Margaret, who's been kind of a great visionary on a lot of the work that everyone's doing on the general plan and EJ element. And then Diana Benitez from Just Cities, who's heading up the Deeply Rooted Collaborative. So we're all going to kind of provide a little bit of a orientation to general plans and the EJ element, and then get into the Oakland plan and process specifically. So kind of understanding the connections between urban planning and environmental justice, applying the EJ principles to our local general plan effort, reviewing, we're going to kind of do a crash course on California general plans because there are a lot of funny rules around them, including a newer rule, SB 1000 for the EJ element. We'll have then a breakout group and then go into the Oakland specific information. And hopefully this will set everyone up to feel confident to kind of skim through or read through parts of the general plan outside of this meeting, either together in small groups or on your own, depending on what you all are interested in doing. So we'll be talking about just a small portion, 2 of the 11 goals in the EJ element today. So one on engagement and the other on how to prioritize EJ communities in the implementation of the general plan. And we will be gathering this information to create a comment letter, similar, to what we're doing for the code amendments that Alicia presented today. And we will also put aside time tomorrow, next month, to discuss additional policies. So these are the kind of, the city is doing the general plan in a phased effort, and these are the latest release of exciting documents that came out. So the EJ environmental justice element, the safety element, and the racial equity impact assessment of those 2 elements. And just a reminder that these are written by a team of consultants hired by the city. They do their best to kind of listen to everything everyone's saying in the meetings, but we need to read these critically to make sure they reflect the vision of West Oakland community members and the WOCAP, because they can't be everywhere at once. So we need to kind of give our critical eye to these things. So just as a reminder, I'm not going to read through all these, but we have been tracking.
Are you screen sharing?
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
not
Are you not seeing a screen share?
Nope.
Oh my goodness. That is strange. Okay,
I thought you were setting us up.
I'm so sorry, everyone. Yes, but mostly the slides I went after have been, let me try that again. I'm going to close some other programs because I think my computer was leaking out there. Okay, let's try that again. As I'm doing that, I'll just speak to the slide that I can see, which is the list of WOCAP strategies that are in alignment with the, okay, here we go. In alignment and kind of this, okay, now can you see my screen?
We can.
Okay.
Thanks.
So last time it messed up when I put it in the slideshow mode, but let's try again. And if it doesn't work, then we'll keep it out of slideshow mode. Okay, can you still see my screen?
We can.
Okay, so just as a reminder, these are the strategies that the City of Oakland, from the WOCAP, that the City of Oakland is planning on addressing in the general plan. And we will kind of dive into these more in June, but as is our practice, like making sure every conversation is connected back to our WOCAP. So Miss Margaret, are you on yet? I'm looking on the participants. This is her.
She's getting on
section of the
in,
group.
she's getting on in a minute, Beth.
Okay, I will move forward and then we'll go back to these because I want to make sure Miss Margaret gets to talk about this. So one of the other things Miss Margaret wanted to make sure you all were aware of, there's this confluence of exciting things happening in the world of environmental justice. And just like 2 weeks ago, Biden signed an executive order on revitalizing our nation's commitment to environmental justice for all. And the big kind of headline here is that environmental justice is now a duty of all executive branch agencies and should be incorporated into their mission. So taking that really, EJ is a frame for everything. And, you know, thinking about, okay, how can we think about EJ as a frame for the whole general plan as well? Let me know when Ms. Margaret gets on and I'll backtrack to our environmental justice things. So environmental justice, the kind of definition at the federal level is the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of people of all races, cultures, incomes, and national origins with respect to the development, adoption, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. So, you know, this is a lot about like the air pollution, air, water, soil pollution. And more recently, a lot of community groups are expanding the concept of EJ to think about the basic right of people to live, work, go to school, play, and pray in a healthy and clean environment. So a very broad, like casting a wide net definition. And coming from a public health background, this makes me think of risk factors and protective factors, where the older, more kind of original definition is more thinking about how we're preventing those risk factors, preventing those negative outcomes. And the protective factors is like, how are we thinking about characteristics that are associated with a lower likelihood of negative outcomes. So we, in these new definitions, the old one is more about reducing risks, and this new one is about reducing risks, but also increasing the good stuff. Can anyone give me examples of a risk factor or a protective factor? You can just shout it out. You don't need to raise your hand.
All right, you can give it to us.
What? Okay, so let's see. Reducing risk factor would be kind of reducing the pollutants in maybe your tap water, and increasing protective factors might be, you know, thinking about grocery stores having healthy produce. So I am going to keep moving. Is Miss Margaret on yet? No. Some things to think about when you're reading these semi-technical documents in the general plan is they often talk about sensitive land uses and sensitive receptors or populations. So just throwing these out there, sensitive land uses are the facilities that where you'll often find sensitive populations, and then sensitive receptors or populations are the people who are kind of more vulnerable to pollutants and other things like children, elderly, people with health conditions. Well, Brian, Miss Margaret was going to go through the kind of talk briefly about the principles. Did you want to do that, or do you want me to just do that?
I can do it. I was trying to call her and see if. Oh. Oh, okay. Well, keep working on it.
Okay.
Hold on a second.
So.
Okay. Well, see if it settles down, and I'll fill in for you.
It looks like it's coming up right now.
There we go.
Oh, wonderful, Miss Margaret.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Stop, right on the paper.
We can't exit Miss Margaret out for disruptions.
Mm-mm.
You want to, Beth, you want to bring her up to speed? She was just came online. So.
Sure, Miss Margaret, remember we had talked about you were just going to kind of briefly share your vision of how you see the 17 principles interfacing with the EJ or with the general plan effort. Here were the principles and here were the items we pulled out that connect. We can just move on if you are busy though. Okay.
So let's just talk through these. Do you want me to do it, Beth, or do you want to just do it?
Sure.
Okay. So the 17 principles of environmental justice, as some of us, many of us may be familiar from the 1991 People's Congress in Washington, D.C. They primarily focus on the right of communities to have their own voice. That is the first thing. There's a right to clean air, water, and food, but the way you get that is to have a voice in the process. So the second bullet here is, for us, probably the most important one of all 17. The others have to do with the rights of safe workspaces, reparations for damages from corporate greed and industrial pollution, holding polluters accountable, all of these things that we all believe in. The key thing is we can't do any of this if we don't have a voice in the process. And so the right of communities to speak for themselves, to be in an environment in a forum where they have the power to influence change, are the things we primarily believe in. And that is the forum you're in right now. This is why we create these collaboratives with steering committees of informed people who have their heads in the right space, right, to bring about change for the community. So that's the principles, and I'll leave it at that.
No, that's great. Thank you. And I'm sorry, Miss Margaret didn't get to speak to them, but so moving on, general plans set the stage for zoning and many other city efforts, and but we know that racially explicit zoning ordinances and redlining kind of align with current day pollutant maps and segregation, residential segregation. So it's really important that we do figure out ways to undo past harms, like it says in those principles. So when we're thinking about what types of policies can be in an EJ element, we're thinking about how do we reduce pollution, how do we reduce exposure, how do we repair those past harms, enhancing that community engagement, increase health promoting conditions and programs, and finally setting the framework for future development to be healthy and equitable, and all while thinking about the geographic distribution of these hazards and amenities. So this is going to be rapid. What is a general plan? So it's the constitution for development and conservation in a city or county. It's the opportunity to look back and identify past challenges and accomplishments, and to reduce racial inequities and promote inclusive engagement. This document has, anywhere from like a 15 to 30-year planning timeframe, depending on how frequently cities update it. There's 7 required elements, now an 8th with environmental justice, and then cities can add any optional elements that are relevant to their work. So general plans typically have kind of an existing conditions report or community profile, which the city has already put out for this one. And then the policy, which has goals, policies, and actions with maps and diagrams and text. And then implementation programs that'll sort of get into the nitty gritty of who's doing what and when. And general plans have to be consistent, so they can't disagree within the general plan. You can't have an EJ element that says one thing and then a land use element that says another thing. And then the general plan also has to be consistent with all the other plans and zoning that a city puts out and uses. And I'm gonna so the reason this matters is because if there are inconsistencies, the city can be sued. And it also influences, these bullet lists here with all the stars. All these things have to kind of be in step with the general plan. So when you feel like, oh, this is such a long time horizon, it's not going to matter, it really does influence a lot of things, almost everything, but the city does. So SB 1000 is the new rule that requires cities to do an environmental justice element. Miss Margaret was really moved by this Rupa Valley case study, so I'm going to share it. So the Center for Community Action and Environmental Justice sued Riverside County for not adequately reviewing environmental impacts of some warehouse facilities that were built right next to a Latino community. And part of that settlement was for the new city of Rupa Valley, because it used to be unincorporated, to write an environmental justice element. So the developer had to fund this EJ element. And this paved the way for kind of community engagement that the city had never really done before, future proposed projects. And then BCA EJ teamed up with SEHA, the state umbrella EJ org, to co-sponsor SB 1000. And I have a colleague who used to be a planning commissioner there, and he told me that anytime WOCAP wants the CAE, EJ would be happy to talk with us. So if we ever wanted to hear about what's happening in Inland Empire. So let's see. So this has been in effect since 2016, and they really want to identify EJ communities. So we're not thinking about the entire city equally. They really want a focus on EJ communities, increase transparency, reduce pollutants, and increase those health promoting benefits. So there's required topics that I have listed here. Today, we're going to go over the civic engagement and improvements and programs to address the needs of disadvantaged communities. So it's a pretty unique set of legislation that says you have to write policies about how you're going to do better community engagement and how you're going to be prioritizing the needs of EJ or disadvantaged communities. The state has definitions of how to define EJ communities. Kalila can talk about that. And now we are going to pause. Sorry for that rapid fire crash course on general plans, but you have the slides, and I'm always available to get nerdy with anyone if they want to learn more. I'll pause there if anyone has any questions. If not, I'll go into the instructions for our small group breakouts, and then Kalila and Deanna will kind of continue on with digging into more of the Oakland general plan after our first small group. So does anyone have any questions? I'm not monitoring the chat, so. Oh, how long does Oakland's general plan span? Kalila, well, housing elements need to be updated every 8 years, and then the other elements, usually it's like 15 to 20 years.
Yeah, so this plan that we're working on is a 20-year plan. So Oakland 2045 is what we're calling it. So I think it varies, but this year's a 20-year plan. And the last time the elements were updated, I think, was over 20 years ago, exploring the housing element.
Yeah.
Alicia?
Okay. And yeah, I see in the chat someone mentioned National City and the Environmental Health Coalition. They had the first EJ element in the state, and they were partnered with Rupa Valley in all the SG 1000 work also. So yeah, thank you for sharing that, Suma.
And before we break, you want to chime in there, Alicia?
Yes, so small groups, we're gonna try. Miss Margaret and Randolph and Anna Lee and a bunch of other folks have been working really hard on the community engagement document, Welcome to the WOCAP. This was the framework they created. That plan was presented, I think, in December. So just a reminder as we go into our discussion about community engagement, that this is our kind of WOCAP community engagement framework that we want everyone to remember. It's on the little board that you'll all be working with. So goal 8 is to foster meaningful civic engagement and support community power and capacity building. That sounds great. So what we want to do is we're going to look through those policies and actions that the city has written with their consultants and make sure that we think those policies and actions are enough to get us to that goal. And if they're not, how do we enhance them or write additional policies? So the Miro board, I'm going to put in the chat.
It's done.
Oh, thank you. So if I'm going to assume that you've never used a Miro board before. So there's, you know, a big board. We can pretend like we're at the senior center and that these are all on the wall. You're going to break out into small groups. We'll have facilitators and note takers there, but everyone can also write their own thing. This resources and inspiration section is kind of, if you get stuck, there's the EJ principles, the WOCAP strategies, the map of our impact zones, the EJ communities map from the general plan, and then a resource on outreach methods from our Welcome to the WOCAP document. So in the small groups, I've split up goal 8 so that you're each only reviewing about a third of the policies from it, and then the 3 actions. So you can zoom in as much as you want. To move around the board, you have to right click. And you can take these little Post-it notes, just like if we were in person, move them around, write on them, you can resize them. And first you can spend some time skimming through the policies and writing your comments. And then you can look at the actions and then think about, like, what other policy or action ideas do we need to see in our general plan to feel like the city can adequately support community power and capacity building? So I will pause there and we'll have about 15 or 20 minutes in the groups, and then we'll come back, do a few more slides, and then go back into another breakout group with the same folks.
So we're just a little bit behind. Do you want to keep it at 15?
Let's do like 17 minutes. I think we're okay. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'm going to open up the rooms. Have fun. We'll see you in a bit.
Thanks, Randolph. Oh, I'll stop sharing my screen.
Hey, Maria, where are you going?
Hey, what?
What room are you going to?
Oh, was there?
You should be in.
I didn't see. Sorry, I had an internet issue and got disconnected. So if there was something in the chat. And
Yeah, so let's see here. Where are you?
Randolph, can you move me to group 1?
Yes, I can. as soon as I find you. Oh, there you are. Move to room 1.
Thank
Okay,
you.
where would you like to be? Pick a number. Let's move you to room 3.
Okay.
All right,
Yeah.
3, and Miss Margaret is going to room 3. You good? Hey, Miss Margaret. Miss Margaret. Hey, Miss Margaret. Miss Margaret.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Accept that. Room 3.
My computer keeps fading in and out. I don't know what's happening with
Oh,
the internet.
gotcha. Okay. Hey, Daniel. How's it going? Daniel?
Hey there, Randolph.
Hey. So are you just joining us?
I'm just joining you. I'm actually just checking the connection on this since I think we're not on the agenda until about 7:45.
Oh, okay. Okay. So do you want to pop into a breakout room?
No, I just wanted to make
Oh,
sure
okay.
on that the link worked and that everything was fine so that when we jump back in, we didn't create any problems in the middle of this.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. You're good.
Yeah, so I'm gonna jump off here in a little bit.
Okay.
Hey, Ms. Margaret.
Okay. All right. Hey, Miss Margaret, I'm going to hop into a room. Miss Margaret,
Yes.
I'm going to hop into a
Keep
room.
fading in and out.
Oh, okay. All right. So I'll be back.
All right.
Hello, all. Welcome back.
Thank you.
I didn't know it was going to be a 120 minutes. I mean, 120 seconds before. I thought it was going to be like 30-second countdown or something like that.
I was wondering, I was like, are we gonna
yeah.
go back?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Okay, great. So we're going to move directly into, I'm going to introduce Kalila. You want to take it
Yes.
away, or do you want to please?
Leela, do you want me to share my
You have-
screen or did you want to do it?
You have access.
Okay.
You can
Here,
share
I'll
it,
just
Beth,
share
if
it
that's
because I
cool.
have it ready.
Thanks.
Okay,
Yeah, there we go. Can y'all see my screen again?
we can.
Okay, let's get it in nice and big. Okay.
Take it away, Kalila.
Okay. Thank you. So I'm just going to go over the general plan team structure. So the lead agency of the general plan update is the City of Oakland Planning and Building Department. Project manager is Lakshmi. You've probably seen or heard or gotten an email from her about general plan. We have two consultant teams. The technical consultant team is Diet and Bhatia. And so sorry, they're the ones lead. Could somebody go on mute? It's like a little like backgroundy, please. Thank you so much. So the technical consultant is Diane Bhatia, and so they have a team of sub-consultants that are helping on a variety of things, such as the environmental impact report, the zoning update, the EJ element, etc. And then our community consultant is the Deeply Rooted Collaborative, and they have a team of 13 CBO partners throughout the city that are focused on reaching out to specific communities. If there's the next slide. So just an overview of some of the engagement activities that we've been doing over the past year and a half since this project kicked off in the fall 2021. Cultural events and pop-ups led by the Deeply Rooted team, neighborhood workshops and town halls, different discussion groups, focus groups. We had a focus group at the end of last month on the zoning update proposal and engagement online. And if you click on the link, or I don't know if you can click on it, but if you have the presentation, I'll put it in the chat. You can go see.
I got you.
Thank you very much. You can see the upcoming events plus a recap of past events. I turn it over to Deanna to go over this.
Yeah. So I'm Diana Benitez with the Deeply Rooted Collaborative, and so wanted to give you a bit of context on what we've been up to. And so wanted to note that usually in these general planning processes, it's usually just a technical consultant that's hired, and they do the writing of the general plan, and they do a lot of the engagement with the city. And so for the first time in the City of Oakland's planning history, the planning department funded community engagement consultants focused on reaching low-income communities of color that have been historically marginalized by government planning processes. And so that was us, the Deeply Rooted in Oakland partnership. And so we have 13 multiracial organizations that have been serving Oakland's low-income communities of color for many years. And our collaborative works to counter a legacy of discrimination by ensuring that marginalized residents participate in creating an equitable and culturally thriving Oakland. And so we're conducting engagement for particular geographies and particular populations. So we're focused on reaching out to low-income Asian American, Pacific Islander, Black, Latinx, and multiracial communities, unhoused residents, formerly incarcerated residents, youth, undocumented residents, and residents who are experiencing environmental injustices. And so our outreach is focused in places like Fruitvale, West Oakland, East Oakland, Chinatown, Eastlake, and San Antonio. And I do have a table with a whole bunch of text where you can see our different partners and the outreach geographies and communities that they have. And I did just want to highlight that in West Oakland, if you go back one slide, we have partners like West Oakland Environmental Indicators Project, the House Full of Black Women Project, and the Black Arts Movement Business District, CDC, and also the Village that are focusing outreach in West Oakland. And so in the last year and a half, we've reached over 3,500 people at more than 54 community events. And our engagement has been focused, like Kalila mentioned, pop-ups and being a part of cultural hubs. So events like 510 Day, the Malcolm X Jazz Arts Festival, Acoma Market. And I know in West Oakland, we've also been having porch-side chats in like rec centers or people's like porches or backyards. And so really wanting to meet people where they're at. So folks that wouldn't usually attend the town halls that, for example, the city and Diet and Batia are putting together. And so I also just wanted to note that as part of this process, we're also convening an equity working group of 17 Oakland residents that are helping to inform policy priorities and advance racial equity. And we also have 20 youth fellows between the ages of 15 to 24 who are conducting outreach and also informing policy priorities because they are our next generation. And we also have a website, so you can click it to check out more. And if you go on to the next slide, I also just wanted to briefly mention that with the engagement of the housing element, we were able to integrate 30 housing justice strategies based on the feedback we had been hearing from community. And so I wanted to note that the Equity Working Group, Deeply Rooted Partners, met with different directors of planning, housing and community development, homelessness and city administration, and also city council members to discuss community housing policy recommendations gathered from the Deeply Rooted engagement. And we also discussed 16 missing housing policies with city council members, and we're currently tracking them to see what amendments the city council's members will be making in the next few months. And so a few examples of what was included in the housing element were things like the majority of healthy development guidelines that were related to housing. There was also a proposal that the planning team agreed to conduct a study on neighborhood displacement impacts from potential market rate development projects and require displacement prevention strategies. And so I just wanted to give you some context of some of the successes we've had in the last year, and that we're working on a similar approach with EJ and safety elements. So we're having similar conversations like what we're doing here today with you all. We're doing it with the Equity Working Group and Deeply Rooted Partners, and then also going to be drafting a memo and sharing it with city council members. And I'll pass it back on to Kalila.
Oh, and I see Richard's hand.
Just a question, Diana, that was impressive. So you, on the housing side, when I look at the current draft plan, it has 3 actions. Can I assume that all of the actions, the 30 strategies that you came up with are not yet reflected in the draft plan, or what am I missing?
Oh, there are 30 housing justice strategies that we heard from our engagement that were integrated into the housing element. And so they're already in the housing element that was adopted in March.
And the plan is final. Yeah.
And the plan is final. There are just 16 that weren't integrated, but the way the city council adopted it is they adopted it with the understanding that in the next few months, they would come back with some amendments, some additions to make. And so we're working to see how many of those 16 we can get in.
So you're not trying to get them into this draft plan. You're working at a whole different scale.
Working to get them right now, we're focusing on the environmental justice element for the meeting that's happening today. And so some of them we're also going to be wrapping them into the EJ element. But what I was just mentioning, the last slide was just context for the housing element. And I'm sorry if I confused.
Thank you.
All right, Kalila.
Go to the next slide, please. So
next one
these are some of
after.
the topics that we heard from community feedback and that are integrated into the EJ and safety elements. For EJ, a lot of community feedback about addressing pollution, industrial land uses, infrastructure things such as pedestrian and bicycle comfort and safety, cultural spaces, housing issues, climate resilience, government accountability. In the safety element, we heard a lot about public safety and equity in emergency response and community leadership. Next slide, please. So just a quick overview of general plan update process. We're in phase one. Phase one started, like I said, in fall 2021 and will continue through fall 2023. In this phase is the housing element, which is adopted the end of January of this year, and the safety and EJ element, which we're working on right now. The industrial land study that was published, I can put the link to that in the chat. That will inform the land use and transportation element of the second phase, and the phase one zoning code amendments that we're working on right now. Also, for each element, there was a racial equity impact assessment conducted. Next slide, please. Phase two, which will kick off in the fall of this year, will have 4 elements: an open space, conservation and recreation element, a noise element, the land use and transportation element, which is one of the biggest elements, and a new infrastructure and capital facilities element. There'll also be a more comprehensive zoning update, along with a similar racial equity impact assessment for each of the 4 elements. There's a hand raised. Should I take that now or should I keep going?
Brian?
Yeah, thank you. Can you go back one slide, 58, I think it was? One more, 57. And I just have a question. It's just an orientation question. Because when we look at some of the things in the EJ element, people are, and I admire everyone. This is hard work. First thing is, this is not a criticism, right? This is really hard work because nobody knows how to write an EJ element. I'm wondering, some of the things that are described that are coming up for people, is it slide 56? Can we go back one more? But some of the things that are coming up for people seem to be like they belong in other elements. Yeah, transportation, safety, and noise, and pollution. Maybe pollution belongs in the EJ element. But for me, it's like going back to the EJ principles. The EJ principles are more about having a voice, not dictating specific outcomes, right, around specific things. So I'm just wondering, how is that coming together when folks are, when they're given an opportunity to speak, which is not all that often, is someone sort of triaging the list and saying things belong in certain other elements, or how is that working?
Yeah, we're going to get to that. I think if we go to the next slide, that should answer your question as I go over how the EJ element is structured.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll wait.
Okay, I think maybe we missed it then. Anyways, I'll just answer it now.
And Kalila, I just want to do a time check since, you know, we're trying to do too much, including me, and I want to make sure we have time at the end for the discussion. So let's just go through the EJ stuff and we'll save the safety element overview for next month. And then so we can get into the groups.
Yes, that sounds good. Actually, yeah, I don't know if that slide made it in, but to answer your question, Brian, so the environmental justice element, state law requires that you either put it into a standalone element, the EJ principles and goals and actions, or policies, goals and actions, or integrate it into all the other elements. And so the approach that we're taking is to do both of those things. So we have a standalone environmental justice element, and then in the other elements, we are also integrating environmental justice goals, policies, and actions. You know, I can put a screenshot of it in the chat, but there is a table in the EJ element that shows how you know, environmental justice goals will carry out through all the different elements. And so I think that might be a helpful thing to look at. But yeah, to answer your question, a lot of these goals are cross-sector and cross, you know, element, and will be integrated as such.
Great. We're going to take Deanna, and then we're going to go to the EJ element. As was stated, we'll probably save the safety, and just a heads up, we may be over because we've got a presentation coming at the end. Deanna?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up that with the deeply rooted engagement approach, we have a matrix where when we hear things from folks, we're listing based on how the city is saying like, okay, this is going to be discussed in the housing, this is going to be discussed in EJ. So we're listing them. So practically every single thing that we're hearing from folks, we list them as going into a lot of the different elements. And so we're keeping track of them. Like we've already started hearing things that are going to be going into the land use and transportation element, but we're making sure to code it and track it. So we're making sure it's getting integrated. So that's what we've been doing.
Great. All right, Kalila.
Great, thanks. And so, yeah, thank you so much. So right now we're looking at a slide of the environmental justice communities map. You know, this was a year-long process that we undertook to identify the indicators and that informed the development of this map. The WOCAP team was an integral part of that. And so, you know, a lot of the feedback that WOCAP provided was integrated into development of this map. And as you can see in the pink hashed textures, those are the EJ communities. There's 48 of them. Majority of them is West and East Oakland. We can go to the next slide, please. So there are 10 EJ element goals that address state requirements and community feedback. I'm just going to go through the first 5 now. The first one is about reducing pollution impacts and reducing and mitigating pollution impacts. The second is about protecting Oakland's water supply. The third addresses illegal dumping. The fourth is about improving housing quality. And the fifth is about making sure everyone has access to affordable and nutritious food. And on this next slide, you can see how, you know, I've taken a first stab at showing how these goals relate to some of the 17 environmental justice principles. So like the first goal about reducing pollution, you know, I think relates to 8 and 17 about affirming the right of people to work in environments free of environmental hazards, and 17, making sure people make choices that
I think we can,
protect
let's move
Mother Earth.
I think we're gonna move on. I want to get people
yeah, so I won't,
but
yeah,
here's how the principles relate to the next set of goals too.
Yeah, and so goals 5 through 10, or 6 through 10. 6 is about making sure people have access to well-maintained and culturally accessible community facilities. The 7th is about creating a built environment that supports physical activity. 8 is about fostering meaningful civic engagement. We went through a lot of those policies and actions in the first breakout session. Goal 9 is about expanding economic development. And goal 10 is a broader goal that is about prioritizing programs that meet the needs of EJ communities. And so I think we'll discuss this in the second breakout group, but we're definitely looking for feedback on what those are.
Yeah. And I think,
so we're not doing this, right?
No.
No.
We'll save the.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Here's the list of
so
all the. Oh yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I'm just going to say the public review period started March 24th. It goes through middle of June 22nd. You can view the drafts online. You can also comment directly on the drafts via the Conveyo system. If you are close to the Oakland Main Library, you can view the physical copies at the circulation desk. We'll be having some community events coming up. Some of the dates are not quite established, but the one that we do have a date for will be June 14th, 6 to 7:30 p.m. at the Oakland Main Library on 14th Street. And there'll be some others in June, dates TBD.
Great. Okay, so one more time, we're going to add a link to those events coming up. Thanks so much. Lots of work. This is all a function of trying to get 81 slides in one meeting, but we're going to get through it. Thanks so much, Beth. Thanks so much, Deanna. Thanks.
I just need to finish this one thing, which is that so we're reviewing these key parts now. If there is interest, and I know there were a few people who said they'd be interested last month, so if other people are interested to like have little peer reviews, you know, discussion sessions in the coming weeks, I'm happy to hop on a Zoom or meet in person with anyone. If we want to get together to kind of feed into our comment letter, we'll have a portion, a smaller portion, but still a portion of the June meeting to have additional policy discussions focused on the kind of air quality related policies, and then be crafting that comment letter in early to mid-June, and we'll be submitting it on behalf of the steering committee by June 22nd. So goal 10, prioritize, part of the SB 1000 legislation is that the city has to prioritize all those great improvements and programs in those identified, those orange hatched EJ communities from the map. And so we need to look at our Miro board again and see, does the city's couple policies and one action adequately show us a path where the city is going to be prioritizing EJ communities. And so you'll be in your same small groups and you'll scroll. There we go. So you'll scroll down the small group discussion 2. Let's be in this for 15 minutes, Randolph, so we can have still time. And so I'll just let people jump in. Everyone's going to review the same 2 policies and 1 action, so it's not as much to go over. And then thinking about other ideas, I have some categories to help, get your kind of thinking going and organize it. But if you want to just have a more natural brainstorm in your group, that's fine too.
Ready?
Push the magic button, Randolph. We're ready.
All right. You'll have about 13 minutes before you get the 120-second countdown. All right.
Yes, thank you.
Hey, Nicole, I don't know if you're putting people into groups, but I just joined to listen in on the last thing. So I don't know if you're doing this, but I don't want to go into a group because I didn't hear the presentation.
Randolph is actually managing.
Oh, okay. Well, it looks like he hasn't put me anywhere anyway. I'll just lay low. That was my son. Everything's fine.
Oh yeah, I can't chat him because he's not in this room.
Yeah, it's okay.
Limitation.
Or maybe this is the breakout group. Okay, well, I'm gonna just be quiet.
Karen, were you in the other group or Miss Margaret? In the first group?
Shayna, just testing the mic here. Can you guys hear me okay?
What's your
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Brent, where you been? Let's see here. So our full group will be back in the room in 111 seconds. How's it going, Shayna? We haven't seen you in a while. Karen?
Hey, this is Daniel. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Terrific, thanks.
So for Daniel and Joe, we're gonna come out of this group. We're gonna do a little debrief, and then we will be ready for you.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Now, Joe, how long have you been at the city? I think you have a gold watch coming or something, huh?
Yeah, they gave me a coin for
Yeah.
20 years in service. I look at it on my desk every day.
Wow.
Yeah, but I had a 4-year break when I went to work for the county with Nate Miley. So
Okay.
I started with the city in '97. So what's that,
Wow.
25 years ago?
Wow.
But I went on a little hiatus. Yeah,
I know I've seen the name a few times over the last. I came across the bridge from San Francisco in '91.
Can kind
and
of
I guess
specify like.
so.
Wow.
Mm.
Wow. Yeah, I have a coworker who always rides me when I make reference to back in the '90s. He's like, you
Yes.
always say that back in the '90s. He's like, I was in high school back in the '90s. I'm like, well,
Uh,
good for you.
That's funny. All right, how's it going, folks? We're just greeting our guests, and we're gonna do a little debrief before we hear from our guests. Does group one want to start?
And just to frame this here, I want to make sure we don't stay too late. So if people just want to give like a 2-minute highlight of like some interesting things that came up in either of your sections, we'll be compiling all these notes and sending them out, so you'll see them. So yeah, keep it short.
Okay, so you heard the directions. Keep it short. Group one.
Well, we didn't actually assign a report out person. Does anyone want to do it, or else I can?
I can do a quick report out. You can all correct me. You can all tell me. Oh, does somebody else volunteer?
Brian, go ahead. Go ahead,
Okay,
Brian.
all right. So we looked at we looked at the elements, and we looked at the planning pieces that were there. And one thing that came up was that there has to be a loop back. There's a time delay most of the time in urban planning, and there has to be a loop back to the people who were engaged. That's the whole idea of community-centric planning. There was a question about whether we needed to cleave closely to AB 617, and I think the answer is yes, because that's where community-centric planning lands. We actually have a public policy there. So it's sort of like we always have to go back to the people who are involved in a process and see if we can find them and say, are you still like this now that we have money to do it? Because oftentimes there's years in between. That was a big piece for me. And that requires a behavioral shift and a process shift for the municipal government and its departments. Averdia, did you have something smarter than that to say?
Actually, no, just as what I was searching for earlier was checks and balances.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. That's what I was searching for, because it's like, well, yeah, but it was always get back to the community so that you are aware of what the intent is of the document prior to implementation. So we're happy with the end result and not angry because somebody else came along and changed everything. That's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Richard or Jimmy or others from my group, do you guys want to share? Any takers?
Beth, I'd rather you
Okay.
synopsize because I kept going down wormholes.
No problem. Okay, let's see. What were our favorite things that we talked about? So I would say the main takeaway from our goal 10 discussion we had was coming back early and often for all the items listed here, and that and making sure that that consultation with the community can actually impact the outcomes. So that was one of the takeaways. And then from 8, I would say a big takeaway was that they need a lot more detail in all of these. Let's see. I'm trying to remember what our community veto power. I'm blanking on.
You're on group 3, not your group.
Oh, I was like, these don't look.
I was like, those
like
are our
what we wrote.
notes.
No wonder. Okay. Oh, one of the things was like they wanted to see consistency, like call out 8617 consultation as a requirement for community engagement for like city related actions. I'll say that that's one of our main highlights. Okay, I'll let group 3.
Great. Group 3.
Got it. I can get us started for goal 8. Just acknowledgement that before any of this happens, community involvement needs to increase and needing to make sure that it's accessible. And that also includes, like, that means language wise that it's accessible and folks can understand. We had a few questions for what some of these things meant, like participatory budgeting, and then also making sure that everything doesn't go digital. We still need an analog approach because not everyone is like savvy on the internet or is as comfortable or has access to the internet. And then just for the goal 10, feeling like wanting to understand when it comes to like implementation, monitoring, and evaluation, like who's a part of the process, wanting to understand what does this mean timeline wise, also just acknowledging that the policies are written a little generally, and wanting to make sure that there's more accountability, more immediacy, and more teeth to connect it to things. And wanted to know if anybody else wanted to add anything else. All right.
Hey, I'll hand it off back to I guess we can just go straight to Joe and Daniel.
Yeah.
And
So-
I don't think you guys had any slides, so
Well, we
I
just
will
have a,
turn off my screen share so people can see your face. Oh, Miss Margaret, you have your hand raised.
Yes, I do. Finally, my internet connection got connected so I can participate. I was a member of the general plan 20 years ago. I could not imagine that downtown Oakland would look with all the high rises. And I don't feel as though
based on that experience, that we're not really getting the real true story of how planning is going to actually look in the next 20 years. So this exercise that we're going through right now for the general plan, and I'm also basing it on who are the developers they're going to be bringing in to develop any of our plans. Will it be as reality of what we wrote, or going to be somebody else's reality? And that's my biggest concern. My biggest concern, that the general plan will not match up to what we want. And even as of right now, even the affordable housing sites, there's no sites above, for affordable housing above MacArthur. Not one piece of land above MacArthur is in the pipe for affordable housing. So although I participate, but I'm very skeptical.
And good reason. Thank you. That's Margaret. So we're going to wrap up this section, and we are going to move. We've got a couple of guests. Let's see here. We have got one of our statesmen from the city of Oakland, Joe DeVries and Daniel Hamilton, and they are going to bring some information about the transformative communities grant. Transformative Climate Communities, I'm sorry, the TCC grant. Joe and Daniel.
Hi, good evening. And first, we don't have any slides to share, so if you wanted to stop screen sharing, you could. And I apologize that I'm on my phone, but I'm stepped out of an event so that I could be here at this time on your agenda. It's actually an exciting event. I'm meeting with chief resilience officers from around North America to hear what they're doing in their other cities. But we see an opportunity to lift up the WOCAP work and to really, kick the implementation into high gear by pursuing a transformative climate communities grant, similar to how we pursued one in East Oakland a few years back. I'm sure you're all familiar with the East Oakland Neighborhood Initiative that led to the TCC grant that we got. It's pretty much High Street East, and then from International down, and it's our Better Neighborhood, Same Neighbors initiative. The State Strategic Growth Council has indicated a lot of support for what we did, and really has a new round of funding. And what I would like to do as the CRO is create another TCC area for West Oakland using the work that you all have already done and really expand on it. We, in East Oakland, we received an implementation grant of $28.5 million. The hope would be to get something big like that for West Oakland as well, through a project development grant. And then we're also, just as an aside, considering looking for a planning grant for the Fruitvale, San Antonio areas. These are all of our high priority equity neighborhoods, as I'm sure you know. And, considering the city's budget situation and all of the great work that you've done, we really want to go after this state funding with your blessing and in partnership with you to really implement the work. And I'll let Daniel talk a little bit more about the details, but that's our pitch for this evening.
Yes, thank you, Joe. And for everybody on here, we're really impressed with the work that's there. And we were here tonight to formally ask for your partnership in pursuing this. There are two aspects of the grant that we could potentially consider. One is the project development grant. Shana just put in the text, that's up to $5 million. The implementation grant can go much higher, but it also has much stiffer competition to it. So I think we'd like to ask for your cooperation in working together to figure out what works best for implementing the work and to co-create a strategy that can help bring these funds in to help implement the great actions that are already in the plan. Other than that, we're here to answer questions and offer things up, but mostly at this point, we just hope that we can solidify this partnership and move forward to bring resources into West Oakland.
Great, thanks, Daniel. Thanks, Joe. Do we have any quick questions? No quick questions?
I have a quick question.
Sure, Ms. Alberti.
Is there a way to add the Residential Action Council that's in West Oakland and the Hoover Durant area specifically? And Annette
Yes.
Miller is the chairperson.
I love Annette. And, you know, I helped start the Resident Action Council when I was part of the City County Neighborhood Initiative. Oh my gosh, how many years ago was that? Well, I had more hair, let's just say it that way. You know, we think that the strength of our application in East Oakland and the strength of the West Oakland as well would be that collaboration with our neighborhood groups. Resident Action Council being a perfect example of that. The success that we're seeing in East Oakland is also the strength of the partners leading the work and really kind of identifying and selecting our priorities. And so that's yes, we definitely want to include them.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
So we've
I
got
think that's a great question. And I also want to emphasize, Alverdia, you represent more than the steering committee. You represent your RAC, you probably represent other groups in your community.
Yeah.
All of that is important, right? Oh, you bring all of that to the table. So
Yeah, Beat 6X,
Beat 6,
NCPC. 6X, NCPC, Neighborhood Crime Prevention Council. Yeah.
One of the things I want to offer is the question has come up recently. Someone asked me recently, what would it take? How much would it cost to implement the West Oakland Community Action Plan? And I said, I have no idea, right? We've never studied it. We've never tried to put a number on it, but it is uncertainly tens of millions of dollars. And so this is one of those moments where we have a great partnership with the city. They want to go pursue tens of millions of dollars for us, with us. And I think this is exactly the kind of thing that we need to do. This is our next step up, right? We wrote our plan. We've been pursuing money in various ways, and different agencies have been working on it. But this is the moment when we say, you know what, we need 10 million, we need 20 million, we need 30 million to really implement what we've already done in West Oakland. So I'm not going to steal Randolph's thunder, but I think the goal here is to see if we can get a thumbs up from our steering committee for the co-leads and the city to work on this together. And then we'll come back to you and let you know how we won't do anything without you. We'll come back to you, let you know how it's shaping up and what it looks like. So if everybody wants to give us a thumbs up, or you want to give us hopefully not a thumbs down. Any other questions?
Steering committee members?
My thumbs up.
All right.
I gotta put it back up.
We see thumbs up.
I don't see any thumbs down. So this is a and again, I told you Joe was the elder statesman. That's not the elder statesman, I'll just say the statesman. And this is a good opportunity. And this is really why you all are doing the work. So thank you for the community members, for the steering committee, for the co-leads. This is, it's for a moment like this where you have this opportunity. Any additional thoughts, comments about
Well, I see David's hand.
the opportunity? David?
Yeah, Joe and Dan, do you have any more specifics about exactly what we would be asking money for? Is it basically elements tracking to elements of the community action plan under AB 617, or do you have more? You have other different or more specific ideas?
Well, David, the nice thing about this program is that it offers a lot of flexibility for communities to define their own priorities.
Yeah,
that's certainly what happened in East Oakland. The community groups decided what were going to be the top line items, and that's what we would intend to pursue. The WOCAP work is already done, but obviously, as Brian said, that could be $30 million, it could be $40 million worth of work within there. So I think that's what we would want to most work out with whoever this the steering committee selects for doing the leadership side of things, to establish a priority list and figure out which of the 2 project development grant or implementation grant is the best strategy for the groups, and go from there. So I think it's to be determined, but largely based on the leadership within this group.
Okay, great. I'd like to participate in that. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Joe.
Great.
Yeah. And
You,
in
you
case,
jumped. Go ahead, Randolph. You're probably going to say what I was going to say.
oh, I was just going to say, in case you have not seen the East Oakland Neighborhood Initiative, the EONI that was funded as a part of the TCC grant. It was a community-based initiative over the course of a year or so. And so I'm going to put a link to that in. And then just before I get back to you, Brian, there are a few other links for folks who came later. Please, if you have not signed in, please sign in. That link will be there. The slide deck is there, the home energy resource electrification, and then there's a couple of other documents. So the first one is the East Oakland Neighborhood Initiative. And it's a similar process. That was East Oakland's process, and we're talking about the possibility with your approval of doing the same thing here in West Oakland. Brian?
Right. Yeah, the other question was, so we got thumbs up for WOP and the team to work on with the city. And David already sort of prefaced that with volunteering. Does anyone else want to be part of this discussion group, steering committee members in particular, as we think about how we scope this?
Brent volunteered in the
We got
chat,
Brent. Yeah.
Yeah.
We got Brent.
and it sounded like Albidria is, maybe?
I don't know. So
Steering committee members, do we have any other volunteers?
this will be the sort of prioritization exercise, and it will bring the recommendations back to the steering committee.
And
So we
this will come back up again. So you'll have
Okay.
additional
So we got
opportunities.
David. Anybody else who changes their mind, just send us an email.
Whoever it was, oh, there it is. Never mind. I see it.
See?
East Oakland. I wanted to review that. Thank you.
Great.
Great. Well, we kind of got back on track. I really appreciate everybody's participation. These are always extremely lively. Planning code. How many minutes you need, Alicia?
I don't need any more minutes, Randolph, but I don't know. I mean, is it okay? Could we do like a show of hands or like thumbs up to some support, send the support letter?
So a similar process. Again, give the 1 minute on. We're looking for an approval to kind of submit this letter of support.
Oh, talking about to Joe DeVries and Hamilton?
No.
No.
Okay, thank you. Okay, on what then?
This is about the planning code amendments.
Okay, thank you, because I was a little confused, We're moving kind of fast.
Alicia, can we put the letter in the chat again, and then we can maybe send an email out tomorrow with the link? So people gave all thumbs up today, but if people have edits or additions after looking at the letter, we can give them till Friday.
Right.
Is that okay? You're muted, Alicia.
Yeah, so we'll do a both and.
That works. Thank you.
So based on the steering committee members that are here this evening, it looks like we've got a thumbs up on an approval on the planning code amendment letter of support. And for others, we'll get a letter. We'll get the information out to the group. All
Beth,
right.
Quick question, Beth, are you looking for signatures or just thumbs up?
We're looking for a thumbs up for Alicia. Alicia, you want to?
I think it was just going to be signed on behalf of the WOCAP steering committee and the co-leads, but Alicia can.
Good.
Yeah, that seems fine. But in the future, we might want to be a little more intentional about that so we can talk about it. But I think for tonight and it's due on Monday, so we should probably go ahead and do the the generic signature for this time.
Great. All right. Sorry, we went just a little over, but this is always good. Great participation, everyone. Really appreciate it.
Wait. We have an announcement from Fern.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
Fern?
Ms. Margaret, we already did that at the top of the hour at the start
All right.
about the May 17th event, but yes, a reminder.
Yes. Great.
Thank you.
All right, you all are wonderful. Thanks for your
Good night,
participation. Thanks for your
everyone.
energy. And you'll be getting some information, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good
All right.
night.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.